We only ask that you state your name for use in the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. And we may or may not have a timer for that. With that, I will open public recognition. And we will start with Susan Brooks Young.
Thank you, members of the council and Mayor Wheeler. I'm Susan Young, and I'm a resident of Bremerton. The new hospital at Silverdale opened in January 2021. Within 3 months, it became clear that there was a problem. Stacked up ambulances at the hospital led to additional ambulances being diverted to other hospitals in Gig Harbor, Tacoma, and elsewhere. Within 6 months of the hospital opening, the VMFH Emergency Department housed in East Bremerton on the former Harrison Hospital campus was closed due to lack of staffing. That closure was supposed to be temporary, but the facility remained shuttered, further exacerbating the problem and leaving Bremerton with no emergency or urgent care services within city limits. I'm aware that VMFH has promised new urgent care and emergency services at its Kitsap Way facility sometime in 2023, but since these are the services that were supposed to be provided in 2018, you'll understand my skepticism about this latest assurance. One might expect that the hospital's administration would work collaboratively with county emergency medical service providers to ameliorate the problem, but that's not happened. Very recently, alarmed by the growing number of delays, the length of time it now takes for a patient to be handed off to hospital staff, and the lack of cooperation from hospital administration, fire chiefs within the county met to design their own solution. I understand that the fire chiefs who participated in this meeting were well-intended when they came together, but this is entirely unacceptable. When did it become okay for the administrators of St. Michael Medical Center to shirk their responsibility to provide appropriate levels of medical care to the community they serve? Plenty of rationalizations have been given for the current situation, starting with staffing issues or the pandemic, but excuses don't save lives. If VMFH is unwilling or incapable of offering the level of medical care this community requires, then it's up to the city and county officials to advocate for their constituents by notifying the appropriate state agencies. They need to request state intervention, either by helping VMFH to correct the problem or by making safer alternatives available to the community as soon as possible. Given current population growth projections for our county, this is a challenge that local officials must be addressing now. Thank you very much.
Council Vice President Chamberlain, I don't see Council President good now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Brooks Young. Next for public comment. Is there anybody else for public comment today? We have Jill Claridge. Let's go ahead and go to you because we missed you on the first round.
Right, thank you very much. I'm here to bring your attention to the property at 6th and Merriam. You may realize it's the old hospital, the Francis Morgan Haddon building, and it has been demolished. All the buildings have been demolished, yet right now all the trees are intact. Almost all of the trees are intact, so it's a good time to talk about this. I know this is still in the comment phase and it's a work in progress, so, and I know also that many others within the Department of City of Bremerton do wish the best for this property, and I do, and I think even from Mayor Wheeler's comments, I think he has a really good intention of saving trees and making it a very livable and lovely place to live. I sent you an image today when I've circled several groups of trees that are still standing and that would be very nice for them to retain. The one group marked A is a group of white birch birches, white barked birches, and they're very lovely. There's 8 of them, and it would only be one lot that they would not have to be built on. You know, they would sacrifice one lot. I'm going to send you more information, but I don't know if all of you know that there's 80, that they're proposed to put 80 houses on this piece of property. And so one lot would not, for example, be very much. I wanted, there's also 2 other groups of trees marked B and C, and these would be very nice trees to save. They are redwoods and ferns. I will send you more information later about the document from 2011 for the state road and what they proposed for this property. More interestingly, they proposed if it went to private property development that there would be 39 houses on it, not 80. So I think, again, we could have just a little bit less a development there, similar to the property at West Park. And you realize there, even that very dense property, they put aside every once in a while a lot that would not have a house on it, and they put something to sit on, a little bit of a park. So if we could save the trees that are marked there, and the people could still have a lot of good houses on it, it'd be a lovely development if they used the park that's flat and had buildings on it before, or there was a track, an athletic track on it. If they could use that part for the houses and not the trees and the section up next to the forest, Forest Ridge Forest, which will kill the trees on that portion of the forest, the western portion that's next to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Claridge. President Goodnow, are you back in? Okay. Next up for public comments, we have Mary Lou Long.
Hello, Council. Good evening. I would like to say that it was great to see Mayor Wheeler at the Boy Scout breakfast, and he said the Pledge of Allegiance. So he does know how to recite it. I'm glad he has not forgotten how to do that.
I'm not hearing you, Ms. Long.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Yeah, go right ahead.
I'm not sure where I left off, but I wanted to know, is it true that the city council as a sitting body can uninvite the mayor of the city if he so chooses to recite the Pledge of Allegiance? If this is true, council has, by virtue of adopting this new wording of procedures, intimidated our mayor from his freedom of speech and his recognition of his loyalty to the principles and values of our nation at every public meeting. This is very troubling to me. What does our city attorney, another subject is, what does our city attorney say about Eric Younger representing 2 districts? Wouldn't this put into effect the need for a new special election for a representative for the district that he is leaving, or he's left? Actually, he didn't leave, but they changed his districting. Anyway, with that said, I'd like to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance for you because I truly believe in it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I also might add to this that in our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence, in the beginning, our founders believed in recognizing our Creator. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, it doesn't say anything about a specific religion, it just says God, our Creator, the God of nature. And I don't see why there's any objection by the council to delete this public prayer, or not prayer, but public recitation, to loyalty, to signal that we're all on the same page. So I would hope that you council members would reconsider putting that Pledge of Allegiance as a ceremonial response to opening meetings, public meetings. And I'd also like to say that I'm really upset that we're not having our public meetings in the Nordics building. Many other community groups are getting together, and there's no problem with getting together that way. And the health district does not put a clamp down on you for holding a public meeting. I don't know why you're not doing that. And if you wanted to do a kind of a system like the Rotary does, they pipe in people on a channel like this for people that have health conditions that might make it difficult for them to attend, but the public could attend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Long. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to comment today? I see Joe Walter has her hand up. Joe Walter?
Hi, thank you, Vice President Chamberlain. And hello, Council and Mr. Mayor. I wanted to just check in a little bit about REACT. I'm confused about how it is that REACT's work is incorporated into the work of the whole council. I'm also confused about the budget. So one of the things I'm thinking is that we have this committee of the council, which has done quite a lot of work with reaching out to the community to understand what does the leadership of people of color in our community, what did they describe as community needs? And from what I'm understanding, REACT has gotten this information, shared it, but I don't see how it is, what is the process of getting it into discussion by the whole of the council? And in the same way, I'm hoping that for next year, I can figure out, or that maybe you will present to the public a timeline by which we can understand the budget process and have an opportunity to give some input with the hope that it will be considered in what you're deciding upon for how our monies will be spent. And you know that I'm particularly concerned about, I'm laser focused on the neighborhood behind Sally's. And we have an event coming up to try and some of you are coming along, and thank you for that, to find some solutions. But I'm feeling like it's in the budget that these solutions are going to play out. And hopefully by next year, we get some clarity on when does the process start? When does the mayor and staff make a draft available to the rest of the council for feedback? And included in the rest of the council would be the REACT committee, because I'm not seeing that REACT is being attended to, and from what I can see, my limited access to what's happening with the budget, it doesn't feel like enough is happening for our people who are the most vulnerable in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Walter. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to make a comment today? Okay, seeing none, I'd like to close public comment. And just for housekeeping, Mr. Jackson, I see you have your hand up. Garrett Jackson, was that an accident, or do you have something that you'd like to share regarding public comment?
Yeah, just briefly following up on Ms. Claridge's comments from earlier about the development on Marion Avenue. If anyone is interested, we do have an open public comment period on that development, and I can put the contact information for that permit in the chat if anyone has questions or comments. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Okay, is President Good now back with us yet? I'm gonna keep doing a check-in on this. So let me pull the script. And so we are closing public recognition. One last chance, public recognition. Okay,
Vice President Chamberlain, I can take over from here for the public hearing.
perfect.
Okay, so next on the agenda is public hearing. Item 5A, public hearing for acceptance of the 2023 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant, Assistance Grant. And with us today is Lieutenant Heffernan.
Good evening, Council. The Bremerton Police Department is applying for the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistant Grant under the 2022 Local Solicitation Program. The funds provided through the grant will help fund the salary of the department's community resource specialist and allow for the continuation of the department's crime prevention and community partnership functions. This is the 13th year that the Bremerton Police Department has applied for a Byrne grant. We're eligible for a grant amount of $15,979, and the application was completed and submitted on August 8th, 2022. If awarded, the grant monies will be used in calendar year 2023, and there's no matching funds required of the city.
Okay. Ms. Hoover, I'm happy to go ahead and take over, or would you like to continue with the? Okay, the purpose.
Sorry, you are more than welcome to take over from here.
No problem. And the purpose of the public hearing is to accept public comment. And so does any member of the public wish to comment on this item? Oh, no, okay. Okay, seeing none, and I've closed public comments. And I'm navigating between two screens. Thank you for your patience, everybody. So do we have a motion and a second? I'll go to the council for a motion for this. Okay, Councilmember Mockler.
Also navigating between two screens. Move to approve the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant and to authorize the mayor to finalize and execute the agreement with substantially the same terms and conditions as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we are open for discussion. Would any member of the council like to discuss this item? Okay, seeing no further discussion, I call for question.
Councilmember Fry,
Yes.
Coughlin,
Yes.
Dennehy,
Yes.
Mockler,
Oh, yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Yes.
and President Goodnow.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Next on the agenda is general business. General business item 6A, reconsider ordinance number 5453, amending chapter 6.32 of the Bremerton Municipal Code entitled Noise Levels, passed on August 3rd, 2022. Tonight, we have Mayor Wheeler, City Attorney Fennell, and Assistant City Attorney Rhea.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hoover, and good evening, council. I'll start off, and of course, we have the legal department representatives to help guide and answer questions through the legal process and the part of this that's coming in front of you. So I'll just want to start off by saying on August 3rd, the City Council unanimously adopted updates to the city's noise regulations. And while this was an important step to take to ensure that the city has enforceable regulations relating to noise levels, the city's administration cannot support this ordinance in its current form. The proposed ordinance establishes a policy that says it seeks to and quote, minimize the exposure of citizens to the physiological and psychological effects of excessive noise, and to protect and promote and preserve public health, safety, and welfare, unquote. And I believe strongly in this policy. I support the ordinance establishing a standard that if loud noises can be heard at a distance of more than 100 feet, that this should not be permitted during the night and early morning. And council, just as a side note, please know that 100-foot proposal from me was me listening to prior council meetings and hearing a desire to increase that exemption from our current 50 feet. I felt that was a compromise that you would see it as such. Moving on, unfortunately, the adopted ordinance, now this is what you adopted unanimously, goes farther, providing an exemption for the city's commercial districts to exceed noise levels until 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays at an increased distance of 200 feet. This is not a minor adjustment to the city's standard practice of enforcing this code, which has been in place for at least 30 years, but instead represents the potential for a major change of character for businesses and residents who operate and live within or directly adjacent to all commercial zones throughout the city. A change of this magnitude reflects a new direction from the city council that has not been communicated to the public. In effect, this ordinance has a great potential to move the burden of noise management from the originator to the neighboring businesses and residents. And the idea that a noise ordinance can be rolled back at any time is easier said than done. I will say from experience, it's much easier to move forward in small, measured increments with a well thought out plan, a vision that has been articulated, and of course, community support, than it is to roll back something that is not working. Once an investment has been made by the businesses, and business practices have been established, it will be exponentially tougher as a rollback on established businesses could force closure. So, council, I will turn this over to anybody from the legal department to if there's any inputs as far as the process, how we got to this point tonight.
I don't have anything to add. I'm here for questions, and I believe that's kind of Michael's position as well.
Okay. So there are two options in front of you for your consideration. It's obvious the one I'm requesting that you choose, and I'll turn it over to council, either Council Vice President Chamberlain or Council President Goodnow.
Thank you. Well, is there any member of the public that would like to comment on this issue? Regarding the noise ordinance changes? Okay. Seeing none, we'll go to council for a motion. Councilmember Coughlin.
Thank you, Vice President Chamberlain. I move to approve ordinance number 5453, amending chapter 6.32 of the Bremerton Municipal Code entitled, quote, noise levels, unquote, that was previously passed by City Council on August 3rd, 2022, and subsequently vetoed by Mayor Wheeler.
And do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. And we are open for discussion, council. So I'd like to go ahead and defer to Councilmember Coughlin first. You made the motion.
Well, thank you, Vice President Chamberlain. Yeah, I'm going to start out saying I value having an effective noise ordinance. We've heard plenty from constituents who have issues with neighbors. I just wrote back to somebody this afternoon who had a neighbor using power tools past midnight. And I really also value all the exceptions that are included in the code, like marching bands and chimes, and me being able to use my power washer during the day, having fun. But Bremerton, also does have a rich tradition of live music. We're embarking on the multi-million-dollar project in Quincy Square, that's embracing that tradition. And so I really don't think, Bremerton is like Footloose. I thought that we as a council arrived at a really reasonable ordinance with a laundry list of reasonable exemptions, one of which was commercial music, being slightly louder from 3 to 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday evenings. But I don't take a veto lightly, especially when it was against the unanimous decision. So I want to do a little sanity check and just kind of review the timeline for folks of how this all started. So going back to November 2019, there's a KPFF Sun article that detailed a lawsuit involving Brother Don's and some nearby residents, and that was already on council's golden agenda to review the noise ordinance back there at the end of 2019. February 2020, parts of our noise ordinance were ruled unconstitutional for vague language. There was a comment by council that the city was going to address, as soon as possible. Of course, that was February 2020, so then the pandemic hit, which put everything on hold for quite a while. But it came back in 2021. So on April 14th, 2021, there was a study session on a new proposed ordinance. On May 5th, there was a public hearing, no vote, just a public hearing. 5 people spoke up. On May 19th, 2021, there was more public comment received. But ultimately, council voted down 5-2 that noise ordinance. And that had the 100-foot rule in it. It wasn't 50. It was a proposed 100-foot rule. There was obviously some issues we've talked about, what's audible versus decibel readers. But by the KPFF Sun article, both council members Younger and Goodnow back then suggested relaxing noise regulations on the weekends for business. So almost exactly a full year went by to 2022 when it came back before us as council. So the Public Safety Committee on May 5th met to discuss it. The 100-foot rule remained, just like 2021 with some other changes. On May 25th of this year, we had a study session briefing on the noise ordinance. Council had some concerns, but wanted more public input, so we decided to hold another public input no vote meeting. June 1st, we had that meeting. We took public input and had discussion, and concerns remained about commercial music venues. On June 8th, we had another study session. There still was no proposal on the table to address live music in commercial areas. And so council ultimately, bumped it back to Public Safety Committee. The mayor said, quote, "Council, I think you're going to have to decide. It's going to be on you to determine the decibel levels will be and what days and hours of the week and toss that out there." And the mayor also said, quote, "I need an ordinance. I need it soon." So it was urgent that we get something passed. So July 7th, the Public Safety Committee met to discuss the noise ordinance. Along with fire, police, and legal and council members, they came up with the exemption for specifically just commercial music on Friday and Saturday from 3 to 11 with that 200-foot rule. It went back to the study session on June 27th. And my recollection is that legal staff were asked to make it clear the 200-foot rule for music was at council's request, not the administration, but there was no further elucidation why there were concerns about that 200 feet. August 3rd, almost at the end here, we got to general business. We got written comments specifically on the 200-foot rule. There was a letter in support from the community, and if I got it right, I believe the individual was one of the residents involved in the original, Brother Don lawsuit there, or who had issues with the noise ordinance originally, and they said they were happy with the exemption and they were glad that it was Friday and Saturday evenings only. The attorney for Brother Don's thought the distance should be even greater and that it should be every day of the week. Some folks would want it there, but it was reasonable. There were no objections by council, no comments by the mayor. It passed unanimously. And in the mayor's veto, yes.
I'm gonna give you 60 more seconds, but
Perfect.
I think you're about to wrap it up.
Thank you. So with the mayor's veto, I'm not saying any alternative proposal. It just suggested to go back to 100 feet or even 50 feet, which I didn't understand. It mentions affecting 1,000 properties from going to 100 and 200 feet, but that, it's an extreme example, assuming there's a commercial music venue on every linear foot of the commercial district across the entire city. So I think it's, extreme and not reasonable. So yeah, wrapping it up, I gotta say, I don't think there's anything new or sudden about asking for a live music exemption. It's been out there for years. The mayor asked, told council they have to come up with something. The Public Safety Committee did. We've had a public hearing on the 200 feet. We got feedback. This is about a dozen public meetings in total on this issue. So I'm open to changing my mind on it. If anybody out there has a different argument or new data, I know it's not perfect, but I think it's quite reasonable. In the mayor's own words, we need a noise ordinance. We need it now. I'm happy to, vote yes, unless you change my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Coughlin. Councilmember Fry.
Council Vice President, Since I heard my name mentioned.
Point of order, point of order.
Well, I didn't, I just want to
Point of
make
order,
sure that I
Councilor
get a
President.
chance at some point to,
Sorry, point of order, no question was asked of the mayor. This is not the mayor's meeting.
well, I don't want to, this is an example of maybe the disconnect why the council
Point of
did
order,
not.
Vice President Chamberlain, can you
Okay,
rule on the point of order?
So for today, Mayor Wheeler, I'm gonna go ahead and ask, Councilmember Fry to go ahead and speak, and then I'll give you an opportunity as well.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember
Thank
Fry.
you, Vice President Chamberlain, and thank you, Councilmember Coughlin, for reiterating that process, some of which I wasn't involved in because it preceded my appointment. All that being said, I was shocked with the mayor's veto. I didn't see it coming. I sit on the Public Safety Committee. I was there for these meetings at which this was discussed. And I know Vice President Chamberlain chairs that committee. She also, of course, remembers all this. But I wanna say that I asked specifically with administration there, represented there. I had the police there. I had the fire there. I had the people there I needed. I asked, was there any pushback on this from those departments? And I will quote Lieutenant Elton, who I respect very much, and so I take him at his word. He said, and I quote, "Will enforce any ordinance the council passes." Now, when I heard that at first, I thought, that's a pretty political answer, but I'm going to lob it right back and say, thank you. Thank you for that input. Once again, I'm going to trust that. I heard no other pushback. We invested a lot of time and a lot of discussion in this. It was a unanimous vote by council. I don't get it. I really don't get it. Yeah, I'm supportive of just moving this baby forward, unless somebody changes my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fry. Mayor Wheeler, can I give you 2 minutes of time to go ahead and reply as you requested to?
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, Council Vice President. And, just so if we could, if I can stay off the clock just for a minute. The one thing is I want to separate this conversation from everything else we're working together on as a city. So just when we're done, I encourage us all, and I will follow my own advice to move on with everything else. We've got a lot of work ahead. I have a strong disagreement with this one. And so back on the clock, I was very vocal multiple times when the 200-foot started to arise and starting to get some traction. So, council, when I make a request for you to get something done so I can have an ordinance for the first time in 2.5 years, 200 feet's not what anybody would envision. Now granted, that's what we have. I vetoed that after I told you multiple times I was not happy. And please know that Quincy Square, that's going to be a different venue. That will be probably a special event permit type operation to try to gauge where 200 feet is for what I consider to be the premier outdoor entertainment center in Kitsap County after $5.5 million investment. We're not going there. So that's going to be a different operation where I expect a special event where noise levels can be increased, which we do with all special events. Activities will be different and managed differently. So, and again, there's no problem with backing up, having more thoughtful conversations on things like Quincy Square and how that goes forward. And so thank you for letting me, and then Council Vice President, if you'll give me the chance, if other things come up, I would love to at least get a chance to say my side of it also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. Good job on the timing, 2 minutes exactly. I'm gonna let everybody go around though, because I think that it's important that for this issue again, without being interrupted. Next up, I'm gonna call on Quinn, who is Vice Chair of Public Safety. I'm sorry, Councilmember Dennehy.
No worries. Thank you, Vice President Chamberlain. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler, for bringing these concerns and getting your veto kind of in front of us and letting us know your rationale. I guess the question that I'm having, and it is, it doesn't need to be directly replied to. It would be great to hear from other council members, but as I'm looking through the redlining, is the major part that you're vetoing, like if you were able to, I know it wasn't a line item veto, you vetoed the entire ordinance, but if you were to line item veto something, it's the 200 feet, not the exceptions for the 3 to 11 in District 2 and 3. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Counselor. I would put a red line right through 200 feet, and put 100 feet there. And then, if we were to start over, I would go back to 50 feet, which we've established a practice in the city that we all many feel comfortable with. And then the 100 would have been the exemption for those Friday and Saturday.
Got you. So let me follow up with that, because it is really good to get feedback from the administration. We don't have any policy wonks working for us. We're kind of sometimes, working it out based on advice and based on other jurisdictions that we're seeing. I would love to see data like this for like MFTE as well. Like, I hope that comes back. I would love to see like, hey, this is how many properties it could be affected. This is how many buildings could be affected. So that's just kind of a note for later. It was good to get feedback from your administration. But would you mind just like kind of taking us through your thought process of why the 200 feet seems excessive for you and what like resources or experts you relied on for that?
It's just right now, that's just measurement. So it was a very quick, the resources and expert only comes from my experience as a planning commissioner, designing and being part of the city council for 8 years, designing the comprehensive plan that you see in front of you, and understanding through my years of living in the city and experience that a commercial district is wide open for any venue that is allowed to operate in there. And once you start to remove a path of resistance to being a business and then maybe a successful, viable business, then you're apt to see that business come in. Now, when you remove let's say you increase a noise ordinance exemption from 50 to 200 feet, all of a sudden the investment that businesses used to have to make in sound dampening, management of relationships with your neighbors, all of a sudden that changes because now they are backed by the law to where they can actually have a new venue, which might not have, you've cleared a path with this one. I'm not necessarily saying that's wrong, but that's a change. That's a major, to me, that's a pretty big change with a vision behind it. And the public, as far as I understand, does not see or has not had that vision shared with them. So living in a densely packed city, walking these streets, knowing what 200 feet is, you start to realize that you're getting blocks and blocks away from a potential venue. And then I'm picturing the doorsteps. I'm picturing night shift workers. I'm picturing people, parents with children, school-age children. And so I'm picturing folks who finally found that one house where the landlord doesn't keep raising the rent, who have no other options but to put up with a new operation. So that's the thought process. That person will have, these are vulnerable. Some of them are vulnerable. In fact, I just named a lot of vulnerable people, and they don't have options. So I don't take these type of changes lightly. I wouldn't put myself or you through this if I wasn't representing those folks.
And final follow-up question, Mayor Wheeler, thanks a lot for that. And then I'll kick it off to my fellow councilors is, I think repeatedly you said that the vision wasn't shared with the public, short of the open public meetings at the public safety meeting at city council where people are allowed to comment on ordinances that are coming up, and our charter and OPMA kind of set forth these rules to allow public comment and public engagement. Was there something missing that you felt? Because I feel like there's a critique of not including the public, and I'm just curious as to what you feel that could have been.
When you have a major, we do this a lot with zoning changes, comp plan updates. When you change a character, you're getting ready to change a character of a neighborhood, or if there's somebody's in, and then under some circumstances something is zoned for, but it's going to be have a major impact. It might be an industrial area or a kind of a commercial area that might, have a major impact on a neighbor. One of the strategies you use for that is you do a mailer, and so you pick a zone, and and in this case it's a big mailer. But in my opinion, that's the magnitude of the change would have warranted a notification, a brief description of what the council wants to do, and an explanation of why. Now, if there's a vision, we envision something like Austin has, or something like New Orleans has for music. Explain the vision and how their property might be impacted being within a 200-foot buffer, where they used to be at 50 feet. And that not only includes the maps I highlighted were the adjacent to the commercial. We couldn't even get into how much is inside of the commercial zones, existing businesses, existing residential. There's too many to even get into to try to calculate how that might be impacted. There's a lot. I mean, there's a whole bunch. And so that's one way. The other one is district meetings with a specific focus, and also rewording the ordinance change in a way where you establish and give me something, administration, something to work with, possibly do it in 2 steps and break out and say it like it is. We're going to do 200. We're considering quadrupling what's been a standard practice for 30 years because of these reasons. And you break it, and that way it's presented in a manner that actually attracts and brings in potential interest from your neighbors. So those are some ways you can do it. District meetings also with a focus like that are ways to also communicate. So.
Sure. Yeah. Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. With that, I'll hand it back to you, Vice President Chamberlain.
Thank you, Councilmember Dennehy. Next up, Councilmember Mockler.
Thanks, Vice President Chamberlain. I'd like to begin with congratulating Councilor Coughlin on his masterly summing up of meetings, many of which I watched. And there have been numerous public hearings on this. It's not just the mayor's call for a noise ordinance that impelled us to pass this noise ordinance unanimously. It was also comments we were getting from constituents. There's nothing I can do about X. There's parties here. There's nothing I can do about it. The Bremerton Police Department had no noise ordinance to enforce. And therefore, I think it's really important that we pass this noise ordinance this evening. Vice President Chamberlain, I'd like to ask the mayor about one comment that he made. Is that okay by you?
Sure. Let's
Okay.
Make sure though that we try to keep your comments, Mayor Wheeler, to under 5 minutes.
It's a single question. I am well defined, I hope. In your initial statement, Mayor, you said that your administration could not support this noise ordinance. You just mean that philosophically you cannot support it. Of course, the police department will be enforcing it once it is passed, yes?
We will,
Yes?
if there's a yes or no, and we can, but if you would like, I can kind of give you a little more what it might be like to enforce 200 feet versus 50, but maybe we just hold off on that.
I would like to hold off on it for now, with your permission, and I know you for a ready and articulate speaker. So, for me, I think the considerations of the people who want to sleep peacefully away from commercial music venues, this is specifically commercial music venues that are called out. It's not like the tire repair shop or a car wash or anything else. It's just for commercial venues. And having been married to a musician for many years, I have to say, I think it's unlikely that a live music venue is going to suddenly splash out into wealth with an extra hour on Friday and Saturday nights. So I think this is a good noise ordinance, and I hope that as an addendum to tonight's discussion, that legal could give us a run through of how this ordinance could be amended without suspending it. So if at some future point we want to amend it, we would know exactly what the process is. And I apologize to Attorney Fennell, Michael Rea, everybody, because I know you have explained this to us already. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Mochler. I see, Councilmember Coughlin, you have your hand up, and Mayor Wheeler, I see that you have your hand up, but you've also made a few comments, so I'm gonna go ahead and go back around to Councilmember Coughlin.
Yep, I lowered it.
Sure, thank you.
Vice President Chamberlain, I see President Goodnow's hand up. I think he's raising it to speak, but I can't tell. I don't know if he's still having IT issues.
And I do not see the hand up. Is it in the,
No, it was my actual hand. I'm on my phone here because my internet is horrible and it's chronic, and it makes me upset that we're going to be looking at their contract and I can't conduct a meeting. So if I can just say that what we have in front of us is we have motions prepared to stay the course and approve the ordinance that we have already unanimously approved. And we have a motion ready that takes the mayor's requests and tweaks the approved, the one, it just removes the 200 foot, but it brings it to 100, so it's still doubling it, but it's not quadrupling it. And so anyways, the real discussion almost needs to be which motion we want to move forward with. I guess a third option is we go back to study sessions and we go back and maybe start again. But I think that we need to decide really where we're at, and I want us to, I want us to approve something tonight, and I think that we need to, choose which motion we move forward with.
thank you, President Goodnow. And I'm not sure where you left off with technical issues, but we do have a motion on the floor. Ms. Hoover, can you read motion that we have on the floor that was seconded that we're discussing right now?
Yes, I will. Move to approve ordinance number 5453, amending chapter 6.32 of the Bremerton Municipal Code entitled Noise Levels, that was previously passed by City Council on August 3rd, 2022, and subsequently vetoed by Mayor Wheeler.
And so I don't believe we have any amendments, friendly amendments. I don't believe we have anybody who has made an additional motion at this time. So, Councilmember Coughlin, I think you were next. Thank you for deferring to President Goodnow.
No, thanks, Vice President. It's always challenging with the IT issues. All good. Yeah, just a few quick comments addressing some other concerns. Councilmember Mochler, Nicole, thanks for the kudos. And I want to say, as I was reading through a bunch of past meeting minutes, I noticed you speaking up as a member of the public. So thank you for doing that back then and for being so involved for so long. Do you want to clarify again, just for any members of the public listening, the exemption at hand is just Friday and Saturday, 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. to allow that little extra noise buffer, just Friday, Saturday, 3 to 11 p.m. I mentioned Quincy Square as an example, not relating specifically to this noise ordinance, just as an example of embracing, live music in the city. Just it has a rich history. I've known people that have been going to live music for 20 plus years here all around the city. We have many live music venues. So that's why I mentioned Quincy Square, just an example, not specific relation to the noise ordinance. The question, Mayor Wheeler, you mentioned sending out mailers. Yes or no, did your administration send out a mailer to residents in the city for your proposal of your proposed noise ordinance that first came before us?
No, and the reason
Okay,
is
thank you.
our comparisons that I gave you, and then we did the research for you. There was a range from 50 feet, which is a low end, to 100 feet, which is a high end. So we're within the normal.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Yeah, so it doubled it. There was a change, but no mailers went out for that change either. I don't want to reiterate right now. We haven't been any feet. There's nothing on the ordinance. It's been 2.5 years. And I'm going to echo, I think it was Councilmember Mockler about commercial venues. They're not all going to pop up overnight. It's not like we pass this and all of a sudden billions of dollars get invested in the city in the next year. It's if something pops up and there's an issue, we can address it. We can amend this down the road. Again, I appreciate the concern. We don't want to let 20 years go by before we look at it again, but we can adapt as needed. So I wanted to put that out there. Thanks, councilors.
Thank you, Councilmember Coughlin. Councilmember Dennehy.
Thank you, Vice President Chamberlain. I think I just want to state where I'm at right now. I think that I am going to actually defer, even though I am Vice Chair of the Public Safety Committee and was involved in this. I think I am going to defer to the mayor and his years of wisdom, his time on council, his 2 terms as the chief enforcer of the city. I am very reticent to put into policy things that might have unintended consequences. Again, harkening back to the MFTE. So I really do appreciate some research that went into this. I can see both sides, but at this point, I do think it might be prudent to listen to the mayor and his years of experience. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Councilmember Dennehy. Is there anyone else on council who would like to comment on this issue? Just gonna go through, double check. Anybody else on council? Okay. And so, seeing no further discussion, I call for the question.
Councilmember Coughlin,
Yes.
Dennehy,
No.
Mockler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Goodnow.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 6 yeses, 1 no.
All right. I think I've
Yep,
got it
go
from
right
here.
ahead. I'm gonna defer it to President Goodnow, who's back on the scene. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll see. All right. So that closes general business. Up next is council reports. Since this is the first council meeting of the month, we will start with District 1 council member and our Vice President, Jennifer Chamberlain.
Thank you. I was really excited by the mayor's report about the potential of some work being done by Lions Park. I know the area that he's talking about because it's my jogging route. So you can actually jog all along the water during low tide, and even in front of the wastewater treatment facility, and all the way down underneath the bridge if it's low tide. And so there is a lot of concrete rubble, a lot of things that, a lot of old pilings, a lot of old things kind of poking out that have no purpose anymore. Thank you for bringing that to my attention as a future project. Once again, I'm gonna kind of call out some space in District 2. I know that Councilmember Fry really wants to have an official park in her district. I just, I got to enjoy some of the green space that she mentioned. I went blackberry picking in a space just up the road from the library. And to the left, there's actually an open field that cuts across behind, and I believe that's the school district property you're talking about, that cuts behind the Boys and Girls Club and over to View Ridge. And it's this beautiful open green space. And I wasn't quite sure. It looks like I was able to go in. There was a fence. There was, there was a little sign that says, pick up after your dog. But I really enjoyed going back there and doing some blackberry picking and enjoying the trail back there. Just wanted to throw a shout out for some green space in District 2. Other than that, I have no further report.
All right, thank you. Up next, District 2, Councilmember Denise Fry.
Yeah, while we're getting my slides up, thank you, Vice President Chamberlain. I know you got people over here in District 2, so thanks for that mention. And yeah, there are a lot of us that use that, and people are actually, going in and doing work themselves. So we're getting some organization around what I'm calling the urban forest, Bremerton's urban forest, and surrounding playfields that are not currently being used, while our kids are unable to get into soccer leagues because they don't have playfields. So that's something that we're going to be talking about. Hey, let's wish happy 20th birthday to Bremerton Ice Center. This is a gem, man, in Kitsap County, but definitely for Bremerton. Not that many people, can host hockey like we can here in Bremerton, as well as figure skating. There are a lot of other things that happen on ice, but I'm a hockey fan. Also, hey, Mayor, love seeing the stuff about the more pathway in Evergreen. It looked like Evergreen Lions Park. I think that work is going to complete the whole bridge to bridge walk. And Josh Farley was just talking about it yesterday, all under the cause of bridging Bremerton, right? Okay, moving on. I've got to give a shout out. Next slide, please. Got to give a shout out, and we can move past that one too. We can get the next, thank you. But I want to give a shout out to Christine Grenier for, man, she has been so proactive with this lodging tax advisory committee. We had a pre-application meeting, went so well, got some great input on that. And she's also making recommendations to improve the web interface and management. So just kudos to staff on that. And then, yeah, I'm getting together with my pal and colleague, Council Member Jeff Coughlin of Manette, and we're hosting a public meeting. Please move to the next slide. Yeah, keep it on that one. I know the city is not used to flyers like this. I really am. But this is the one that we're using, at least until we get Zoom info, and Zoom info will be on the Facebook page, won't be on a printed flyer unless it's digitized. So anyway, September 15th, be there or be square. Great improvements. I actually made one of my constituents cry, who lives on Elmira. She has kids. I drive by her house every day. There's no sidewalk. There's just a big water gully. And man, she's getting a sidewalk because of the Safe Routes to School project. So kudos, Public Works, and everybody that's worked on that project. We're going to be talking about it. Also, a little bit of my vision for that urban forest. And then, hey, if Council Member Coughlin has anything else to say about this meeting, I really would encourage him to do so. So that winds it up for me. Thanks, President Goodnow.
Great segue. Up next, District 3, Councilmember Jeff Coughlin.
Hey, it's me. All right, well, my slides come up, one of which will be a repeat there. Let me say thanks, Mayor, for the updates on the Evergreen sidewalk. I know a lot of folks in my district are excited for that and completing the whole loop. So fantastic works by Parks and Public Works Department there. And I'm great to see about the beach cleanup as well. And I wanted to respond to Susan Young, who I know is a constituent of mine, about the healthcare situation. I appreciate her speaking up on it. I know we all see the headlines and community concern. I know I briefed council the other week about reaching out to Multicare and University of Washington, and I know that the mayor's, as he sent to us, reached out to Multicare as well. So thank you, Mayor, for that outreach as well. One thing I've heard some folks talk about recently, again, is the idea of a public hospital district. It's something to look into. It's nothing that would happen overnight and would definitely take a lot of coordination among the cities and county, but I'll take a little action item to dig in that in more detail and find out, what exact steps and what that would look like, just so we're up to speed on it. This first slide here, I really, Labor Day passing by, I know we have a lot of difficult meetings sometimes. That's our job, digging into details. But I just really wanted to take a moment to stop and say kudos to the entire city staff, who I know work day in, day out and keep this a really amazing city. And I feel lucky that we're in a place where, we're not dealing with the water crisis. We're not dealing with other crises. We're, talking about things like sidewalks and streets a lot, and it's really appreciated. I know everybody goes above and beyond every day. So just thank you to all our city staff and council staff and everybody there. Next slide. Nothing more to say. Councilmember Fry, you summed it up well. I'm really excited for this meeting. I got to say thanks to you for really taking the lead on this and getting things organized. Excited for folks to come. Please spread the word. And just to echo, everyone across the city is invited. And I know Councilmember Fry and myself will be sticking around afterwards. If anybody attends and has things in their mind that aren't related to the public works projects here, we're happy to stick around and talk about them. So fantastic. And for the last slide here, just want to mention that this September is Minette Fest, obviously over in Minette. It's a cool little local gathering, including the world's famous tiniest parade. So head on down and march in the tiny parade if you want, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. This Saturday. And that's it for me.
Okay, thank you. And next, District 4 Council Member Quinn Denny.
Thank you, President Goodnow. Just wanted to say thank you to everybody that picked up any slack. I just got back from vacation and did employment at UW, started a new job at the city of Seattle. So it's been a crazy time for me, but I appreciate everybody that stepped in for meetings and fielded questions, things like that while I was gone. We were really privileged on our vacation to go to beautiful places like Venice, Lake Como, Cinque Terre, and coming back, I was like, oh, this is actually, this place rivals those places. I think it takes like leaving every once in a while to realize that we really do live in one of the most beautiful places in the world. And we are so lucky to be surrounded by the beautiful water and the mountains and the great natural resources. And so I just wanted to share that perspective with you all. And I'm thankful that all of us are very cognizant of that as we have very important duties to kind of shape the future of this area. So glad to be back, and thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. Up next, District 6 Council Member Anna Mockler.
Thanks, President Goodnow. I am not going to show slides tonight of the 3 people on the urban farm tour because it was a month ago. And I should add that only one of them wrote one of the 20 emails that City Council has received in support of the Sustainability Committee. So it wasn't a special interest then. Okay, so good evening. This is another in the ongoing series examining the nature of democracy and its application. At our last meeting, the council president told us that we can speak only to the 2 council staffers and to the city attorney. Other interaction with city staff should go through the mayor's office. This vision of our role is very different from that described in Bremerton's city charter. The charter was approved by voters and can only be changed by voters. Article 3, Section 12 of the charter states that council's remit is to, quote, have all legislative powers possible And council may adopt and enforce ordinances relating to the good of the government of the city. In my opinion, our job is also to represent the people, to treat their dignity with respect, and to do the work they ask of us in the city charter. We're the legislative branch of Bremerton city government, just as the mayor is the head of the executive branch. Our city charter gives us pretty broad powers, as you'll see in the excerpts I'll post in the chat. The mayor, head of the executive branch, has different duties and responsibilities. The mayor's role is executive and administrative. The mayor has general supervision of the city's administration, as detailed in the charter. That's a single role with pretty broad powers and a lot of detail work, a lot of it. So with the judiciary branch, our small constitutional system of checks and balances is complete. The founders who wrote the Constitution, having just rejected the tyranny of kings, feared the rise of a strong authoritarian leader, and the three-branch system was designed to safeguard against that rise. So right now, messy, inefficient, argumentative democracy is often set aside in favor of one strong authoritarian leader. It's familiar to us from history. It's familiar to us from most work that we've ever had. From all military experience, there is a boss and sub-bosses and workers. It's a very clear hierarchy, top to bottom. The thing is that Congresses, councils, and committees operate differently. They are voluntary associations. And voluntary associations are a group of peers with one member who presides, thus president, to maintain proper procedure. Both Robert's rules and our own council's rules and procedures make it clear that the presiding member is not the group's leader, not vested with power to speak for council without consultation, but an equal member with this additional difficult duty. So we, this council, are a voluntary association of 7 peers with one member who's elected every new year to preside. Our job is to be true to our oath and true to the honorable task we've been given. The voters of our districts chose us to establish goals, priorities, and policies. The voters of this city chose our role in the charter. In theory, the mechanism of creating workable policies and ordinances for the good of city government is prescribed in Rule 4 of Council Rules and Procedures. In practice, however, the council president determines what council members may put on the agenda. It is how we've always done it. But the actual written documents give any member the right to introduce any subject, matter, or communication onto the agenda for council's consideration. Yay, nay, or we want more information. I propose that we begin using this mechanism to place subjects onto the agenda to establish policy. One of you might want to introduce consideration of a resolution that protects lands along the watershed forest border, or measures to bring better hygiene and general conditions to the houseless downtown, or to have a hearing on the MFTE. Over to you. We established a number of goals during the June retreat. Let's begin the time-consuming work of realizing them. As Thoreau says, you've built castles in the air. Now put the foundations under them. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, District 7, Councilmember Eric Younger. Well, that's a tough one to follow. I'm a little deep, so I'll try to be a little light. Councilor Dennehy, welcome back. I didn't know you were going to Italy, in particular Cinque Terre. I have fond memories of that place, which I don't know Italian, but I believe it means the 5 lands. There's 5 cities on Cinque Terre. My wife and I did the Rick Steves type tour via the book, not with Rick. And we found Cinque Terre to be the best of all the places, Pisa, Rome. It was so relaxing, and I kind of chuckle. I'm not picking on Bremerton, but Cinque Terre is a very special place. So I hope you had a great time. I will always have that place in my mind. It's a great trip. So I hope you had a great trip too. It sounds like you did.
It was our favorite. Yeah.
Great. The other thing I just want to comment, and this was kind of a relief, is that during our previous discussion, I didn't want to bring up the times. I didn't want to mix subject matter up. But I'm looking at the city's website, And I'm patiently waiting for our packet to see the minutes of the Planning Commission, to see how this has been presented and the thoughtful study that's been put in it. But it appears that we're going to have a public hearing on September 21st, consider zoning code amendments. And for lack of better terms, to eliminate the gobbledygook, the technical jargon that's upzoning, basically taking single family, my own words, single family residential areas and allowing duplexes and townhouses. I'm going to reserve my judgment on that. I want to hear the arguments, pros and cons. I want to read the Planning Commission minutes. I want to hear from the administration, and I definitely want to hear from the public. But what I was relieved to hear earlier is the mayor saying, and I won't say this is a quote, but I was relieved to hear him saying something to the effect that for major important zoning changes that affect the city, a mailer needs to go out. So I'm not the one that looks at the mail in our household. So if we receive it, that's great. I'll ask my surrounding neighbors if they receive it. But if not, I look forward to seeing that in the mail. This is an important decision that I think everyone in the community should be aware of. Not everybody follows the council meetings. When we had the ADU discussion, there was quite a bit of discussion that was covered in the Kitsap Sun. I do read the Kitsap Sun. I don't remember this being a major headline or mentioned at all yet. There's still time. So hopefully the administration will go ahead and follow the mayor's directions and get those mailers out. I'd like to see a lot of input from the public on this. And also I'm encouraging our council to Google upzoning and look at the pros and cons of what is proposed and make an informed decision. It's really interesting. So Oregon, from a little research I've done so far, Oregon passed a similar law. I believe in Washington State. I could be wrong, but I thought it was put before the legislature and it did not pass. It did not pass in California, but there was a little bit of different nuance on that. And I'm interested to see, especially, I think the jury's still out on whether it does create affordable housing or not. So Minneapolis City Council passed something, I think in 2019, and the verdict is still out. So it may have great intentions, but may fall flat. And one of the reasons that in my brief analysis or research is that when you upzone property, the underlying property value immediately increases in value, and then developers can sell the property for more money. An unintended consequence of having less affordable housing. I'm not saying that is de facto the truth, but that's one article that I just recently read. So it'll be an interesting discussion, and I'm hoping that we have a lot of participation from the community so we can make an informed decision. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I do want to just thank Vice President Chamberlain for grabbing the torch and running with it while I had some technical issues, which may have resolved. I also want to mention that a new brewery opened kind of across from Safeway on Callow. It's called Ridgeline Brewing, and it's in the old place where I think it was called Bad Bulldog was for a short period of time. Anyways, they seemed like super nice folk. They were open for Art Walk last week. And I also have changed jobs, which allows me to be in Bremerton for Art Walk. So I'm excited about that. Also, today I had the chance to go down and talk to some of the folks that were protesting the 1-year anniversary of the ferry going temporarily to one boat service. And, you know, it had an impact on my household. It's got a lot of impacts, and I think it's got impacts on the city economically. And I don't know what we can do, but I think we need to just make sure that our voice is heard. And so I think we need to, you know, figure out something on that. And that's all I have. We do have a executive session tonight. I believe it's okay to combine these. So we're gonna take 10 minutes to evaluate the qualifications and compensation of an applicant seeking public employment, which is allowed under RCW 4230-110-1G. And we're going to take 15 minutes to discuss pending litigation allowed under RCW 4230-110-1I. and action is anticipated for both of the executive sessions. So we will be leaving this Zoom and coming back in 25 minutes. So council, if you can get your links ready, and we will head out and return in 25 minutes.
Recording stopped.
Let's try this and see if this works here. You know, let's measure what our investment is, what our return on investment is, how well it's working, and if it keeps working, we'll keep doing more of that. I'm on a committee with people in all of the other 39 counties.
Council meeting for Bourbon. You are joining us while they're on their break for executive session. For Kitsap County's response to homelessness out here in Silverdale, Washington.
And shifting gears. One of the big challenges is that there's people, they're sort of the new shiny object, right? People will hear like, oh, that's working in such and such a place. Let's put a bunch of money towards that. And then it pulls resources away from the other things that haven't been working, and then we're kind of constantly trying to. So, yeah, thank you. Which program are you talking about specifically?
So there's 15 people, right? Is it 15 or however many are living out by the sheriff's department, by the YMCA? How many of those?
There were five RVs. 5 RVs were there, and there was maybe like 15 people. Yeah, the school districts that we were going to, so that they would be able to have the resources to bring. I don't think any of those folks were in treatment. We did have some folks from the water park who were treatment, and so a lot of people
I see a lot of individual organizations fighting their own battles. Is there something at county level that can muster both the nonprofits, the churches, the other organizations, the private groups that make the tiny homes for the homeless? Is there a way to pull this together, muster all of the efforts in something that's coordinated, something that pulling us together gives us more of an effort on this thing?
Thank you, and thank you so much for your service on the Rescue Mission Board. They're an incredibly important partner for us, so thank you for that service. Coordination is the name of the game. I always say, I think in Kitsap County, it's one of our superpowers. I know it feels frustrating, and I know we can do better and more coordination, but there actually is quite a lot of coordination already happening in Kitsap County. We've worked really hard to develop a culture where organizations have a personal relationship with people and they can reach out and do partnerships. We have an extremely active housing and homelessness coalition with 50 or 60 different organizations that participate on a monthly basis to come together to try to coordinate efforts. We also do try to coordinate at the kind of individual sort of programmatic level. So Jared coordinates a meeting of all the outreach teams that are working for different organizations within the county to make sure that we know what each other is doing. They're sharing overlapping clients. They're sort of doing care coordination to make sure that that individual person is getting access to the right things that are going to work for them. One of the biggest challenges that we have, though, is that we don't have just one entity that's providing all of these different services. We contract with about 30 different organizations that all have their own individual mission. They have their own programs, they have their own staff, they have their own way of doing things. And so we try our best to coordinate those efforts and make sure that all of them have access to the best research about what's going on, the best ways to carry things out. We do technical assistance training to help the organizations have their staffs trained, provide training opportunities for staff. So we're doing our best to coordinate these efforts, but as you pointed out, it's a bunch of different organizations doing the work, the really hard work. So there's always more that we can do to coordinate better. And that is one of our primary goals, is to get everybody rolling the boat in the same direction.
Question in the back?
Captain Dana, Salvation Army. You were so right about coordination, but having been in other communities, do feel like that is a superpower. And I feel like I can call Robin at the shelter anytime at the rescue mission, and we do work together. And so, but we all do very different things. Our shelter is a low barrier shelter, so anyone can come to our shelter. The people at Coffee Oasis are youth. The people at the Kitsap Rescue Mission are free to go in there. So we're doing different things at different places. So you can coordinate on a certain level, but you can't coordinate on every level. So that, we have to be realistic about the expectation there. So my community comment question is, so the Salvation Army has been providing an emergency shelter for the last 2.5 years for the county and the city, and we are been honored to do that. In April of next year, that will end. We are not a shelter, we are just a building, and we are breaking down and setting up twice every day. Our building is just not what we've been set up for. So in April of next year, that building is no longer going to be a nightly and daily shelter. So I think that's something, it's a temporary situation, and it's been great for a while, but again, it's not going to last. So we need to be thinking about what are we going to be doing in Bremerton when those people don't have an actual to go to or a visual to go to. So part of that, the Salvation Army had planned to do an enhanced shelter, which is where people would come and stay for an extended period of time. But that was shut down because of the current legislation that is for our tenants. We would fall under some really laws that would just constrain us in ways that we can't be constrained to have on their house. So again, you have to go back to your legislators and say, hey, this is not working, this is broken. When people can't even come to a shelter for an extended period of time and be asked to leave because they have inappropriate behavior, you're forced to maintain them there. That's not okay. Why would anybody, it just makes it so much more difficult to reach people and honor them where they're at and give them that space to grow when we're just have those incredibly important constraints. And, tying the police hands, we see that every day in our shelter. So I think so much of this comes back to those.
Yeah, thank you, Dana, and that exact issue is one of that landlord tenant law shelter gray areas is exactly one of the things that I've been working on. I'd love to talk to you more, maybe you'd be interested in so thank you for bringing that up. And then you also raised the issue of the Salvation Army shelter, temporary shelter closing. I can't even tell you how incredible the work that Dana and her team have been doing at the Salvation Army. They are heroes all the time, working with the very most difficult folks to serve. They were one of the partners that we reached out to when the pandemic began and said, could you step up even more than you're already doing? And could you please, keep your nighttime, your winter shelter open the rest of the time, the rest of the year? And they said yes, graciously, and then they've extended that multiple times, such that they've been open for, 2.5 years straight now, and I can see how wearing that is. I think it raises a larger challenge for us, which is that during the pandemic time, we're providing some additional resources for shelters, and we have been able to expand and grow some programs, and all of that funding is coming to an end. And so all of us in our community are going to be facing some really big challenges about seeing shrinking resources. We've gotten used to having a little more, 150 more shelter beds. It's been awesome. What happens when the funding for those goes away because we don't have that federal and state funding anymore? Very big questions, good ones to be thinking about, and things that definitely keep me awake at night. So lots more conversation on that too.
Lots of tears. Let's go for a few more questions. Are we done with questions? That's amazing. That's amazing.
I have one. Someone.
So I wonder.
Last question. Hello, everyone. My name is Marwan Cameron. I'm the executive director of Gather Together, Grow Together. And one thing that I wanted to say is I really do appreciate all the work that all the agencies do, especially the county. It's a huge task. And working with the county and other agencies here, Surviving Change and Poverty Management, and all the other ones here, Salvation Army, there are a lot of us that are doing the work here. My agency provides transportation and food. My question is this: in a city council meeting a few weeks ago, the mayor talked about zombie homes and taking over some of the zombie properties. Is there any talk from the county level of eminent domain and taking over some of these buildings, like the old Sizzler, the old Denny's, and repurposing those buildings as shelters, because they already exist?
Hey, Marwan. That's the first time I actually heard of zombie homes, so no, I've not heard that from the mayor. But we don't have anything active in the county to take that over. But I'll certainly call the mayor and Mayor Wheeler and see what their plans are and see if we can learn from that.
Appreciate you.
Before we move on to our next topic, I just want to remind everyone we're all volunteers and we want to help with communications between you and the county. So if there's topics you want to hear, if you want more of this topic, please feel free to reach out to us and let us know what's important to you. We have a couple more items that we're going to do. So we have one quick agenda item, and then we'll go on to our public comments, and then we can adjourn. The county's comp plan is a 20-year blueprint for policy planning and capital facility investment. Energy isolated 18 days decisions of elected officials. They're working on that now. They reached out to us for input for central council. We wanted to talk to the council about creating an ad hoc committee where we could get input from the county and the council to help with that on the 2024 comp plan. What do you think of creating an ad hoc committee? We don't have to decide the chair tonight, but I do believe we would want to vote to create an ad hoc committee. And so if that's the one thing we can accomplish tonight, then we can identify a chair.
motion that we vote on setting up an ad hoc.
And I would, if you don't mind, friendly, and then I would add to support the 2024 comp plan update. So there's a clear drive for the community. Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? In favor? Motion passes. Thank you. Now we can move on to our public comment period.
You deserve the mic, sir.
You are very patient.
You want me to stand up here? Good, I like your comments. I'm getting a thought, and we possibly turn some of this at least into a win situation. I see a lot of education that could be done in our high schools. And I looked at the tiny homes that they have over there in Seattle. Well, you could have a group of students in senior high trying to locate county or city properties that have water, sewer, and power close to them. You could have a survey class. These things are needed by seniors to plan out where to put tiny houses on such a piece of property with layout, utilities, roads, pathways, access to them. You could have a situation of learning how to place utilities, and then have the students design their own little homes and such of a certain given footprint. And then the ones that turn out to be the best, they can build them in the school. You're looking at free labor here. You know, and then the placement of moving up from the schools to put them on the sites. Well, it doesn't really help the homeless, which I can see it would. It sure would educate a lot of kids and a lot of viable jobs that are out there.
Are we lucky to have the president of the school board here? President of the school board. Back there.
I've written a few of my elected officials. I haven't really gotten any response back on this idea. Maybe it's no good. I don't know.
Well, you have the right ideas here tonight, and I like what you think about it. Do we have any other public comments? Would you like a microphone?
I can speak loudly. Robert Kellogg. I live in Tulsa. Our home was built by the North Kitsap School District. The students went there, and that was their class, was how do you build a house? And when they're done, it takes 20 years to fix all the little issues.
That's great. It works. Great. Last call for, no, go ahead in the back.
I'm fairly new to this whole thing, but I know I watched Mr. Rickard talk about the fentanyl concerns. And just to piggyback on that, I don't know if what we're trying to do is able to be done to try to make it safer. But I know just our personal experience, boots on ground, having multiple babies being born, stuck, hooked up on all kinds of medication to try to come through withdrawals because of fentanyl, having kids. It's not just been one kid that's gotten a hold of fentanyl pill. It's been multiple children that have flatlined, almost died, ended up parents and other people trying to CPR, and they come back, and then they end up on our caseload. And a lot of times we do have success where we can reunify because the parents look like heck to get the kids back, but it shouldn't happen in the first place. Like to create, I don't know all the ins and outs. People who are in the law and stuff, they know a whole lot more about the legal stuff, which I'm grateful for. But as people working with a lot of these individuals, and when I said earlier, I have clients tell me they wish they could be arrested because they get clean. I'm not lying. It's when we're asking them, what would help you? And they're like, I need to go to jail. I can't. What else am I going to do? They can't step out of it, and they struggle. And it's not fun with them. And so I don't know what we're able to try to change and push forward for within our own community, trying so desperately to make a change in the difference. And no, it's not healthy. You look at the quality of life of an individual that's hooked on it, it's horrible. And it takes 30 pills a day to maintain a high. and it's the high in the last 2 hours, and that's super sensitive and it's heartbreaking to me to see. So I don't know if the video I saw, like, if we can do something in our community to fix that in our county, that would be monumental. It would take a lot of work, but just help, please.
Thank you for sharing and for the work you're doing too. Caleb, did you have a public comment?
Well, I just wanted to thank these people, but also I wanted to say the agendas used to have the list of the board members on the back, which might help some of the other people that don't come to the meetings and know who every month. So I just thought maybe that could be added to the agendas.
That would be helpful. We're still getting back to being used in person. I was happy we had agendas here today. It won't work. That's a good thing. Any other public comments?
Okay.
Please.
About the high school students' ideas, I think being in ASB Key Club, we have a bunch of volunteer stuff, and there's so many people that want to do things, but they can't because they're like high school students, and it's like, okay, well, you have like Walmart volunteering stuff, and that's how far it usually goes. So I think like I could definitely coordinate and like ask around about the idea. I also think it also would be very helpful because a lot of people go to like 911 driving school, or they go to work, or they go to 7-Eleven, and then they have contact with like the Silver Lake kind of shelter. And even personally, there's been bad experiences walking there just trying to get to the Y. So I think people do want to help, and I think it's a good project to set up with Mr. Johnson and like the advisors or clubs.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, before we adjourn, I want to know one more public comment.
The Homes for All group was actually had donated to them many, tiny homes that are now sitting on parking lots because after 3 years now, there has been not found any acceptable / legal location for them to be. The problem is not finding volunteers that are willing to build tiny homes. It's like, where is a legal, community acceptable location? So there's no point in building tiny homes if you have no place to put them. Yeah, and there's just, for information, there is only one zone in the entire county that is zoned homeless. It is, there is a zone for the airport, and then as a donut around that zone is a zone by the city of Bremerton, okay, that is zoned for group homes, homeless, and adult entertainment. Okay, all the things you don't want in your local neighborhood. All right, so at any rate, and there are limited number of properties out there that the county could consider buying. But I mean, it's vacant ground to start from scratch. That's my hotel.
Thank you. It sounds like your idea has some interest. So before we adjourn, I do want to share, we meet every first Wednesday of the month at 5 o'clock in this location. And I'm excited our topics for the next month. We're going to meet our District 3 Commissioner candidates. They're going to both be David, it better be fast if you're going to say something.
All right, we're going to rejoin the city council meeting. It's coming out of executive section. Hey, how you doing there, Captain?
I'm good. How are you
Good
doing?
to see you. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh, I haven't seen you guys forever. We just work with you, but we never talk, right?
Yes, but you guys are coming on the conduit here too, so
Yeah, I know.
it won't be scary to be fun. You
You
love
know,
it.
we are so just we're just crazy. We work 6 days a week and
I
we're
know
lucky
it.
to get off at 7, you know, but it's just, my kids are like, oh, my mother, yes, oh, thank you. You know, it's just, it's been crazy.
It's a lot, and sadly, I think it's going to get
I
worse.
can't hear you.
Unfortunately,
Maybe my volume.
that's what's scary.
It is
I can bring up the first item. I do not have a motion for the second. I believe Assistant City Attorney Jetty has it.
Yeah, there's definitely motions ready. Oh. All right. Jennifer might be having an issue getting back.
Actually, I do have the second motion.
You don't have to read it. I was just wondering if you would step us along.
Yes.
Okay. On my phone right now. So. All right, we're just waiting for Council Vice President to join us. Sorry about that finger.
President Goodnow, is it allowable to ask what kind of internet you have?
Podcast.
Ah, thank you.
One star, do not recommend.
Apologies, I'm here now.
All right, thank you.
Do we have
So I'll turn to the clerk.
Recording in progress.
Perfect. Our first item was, I'm going to read the recommended motions. First motion is move to authorize hire of candidate number 17441171 for the senior planner position at pay band 11, rate 5 of the 2022 management professional confidential and fiduciary salary plan. Do I have a motion?
Denise
So moved.
and Quinn.
Seconded.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I call for the question.
Thank you. Councilmember Dennehy,
Yes.
Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Coughlin,
Yes.
Goodnow.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. I believe our Assistant City Attorney Brett Jetty is going to read the motion for the second item.
Thank you. Move to authorize the mayor to execute the Distributors Washington Settlement Agreement Subdivision Settlement Participation Form and the allocation agreement governing the allocation of funds paid by the settling opioid distributors in Washington state, substantially the same terms and conditions as presented.
Okay.
We have a
Quinn.
motion.
So moved. Sorry.
And we have a second.
Seconded.
I think that was Anna.
Yes, it was.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I call for the question.
Councilmember Mochler,
Yes.
Younger,
Yes.
Chamberlain,
Yes.
Fry,
Yes.
Coughlin,
Yes.
Dennehy,
Yes.
Goodnow.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries unanimously.
All right, this concludes tonight's regular council business. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Enjoy the warm weekend.
Woo! Yes.
that the city council, this meeting out here also, what will happen is city council meeting for Bremerton Keys. I've got some other footage here at housing conversation. Catch what I was going back to the other side. I guess I will sign off with the meeting. A lot of folks down here. A lot of turned out. So, yeah, for sure. How's it going? Going good. You felt like this was a good one. Thought it was better than I've experienced. You never know. Right. Beat up for Kingston and how people are going to be do. I don't know. Right. So, I don't know. Like a no-win. I think what I heard overwhelmingly. Volunteers. You do a lot of volunteers. Drive. You know, yeah, driving there, contact with the county. With the Army and that mental health and all that. So that's a big one. Learned a lot from that. And like one disease. Together. I go out. Yeah, you're back. That's why I always have to hear their story. So you gotta come to the table. Pretty cool. And there's one. That's terrifying. Nice job. Yeah. Only a couple of times. I maybe on Zoom a couple. Yeah. Thank you for all your help. Well, I got to realize it's almost like
looking forward to seeing you more. I think so. Yeah. Camera. So that's weird. I don't know. I can't. But we're pretty authentic, right? Which is all we're trying to answer the question. As best they can. We should have what are we going to
And I love. Yeah, I was so expecting. I'm gonna have to. Yeah, 5 or 4 years. Okay. You bet. Okay.
We need please. As a trustee, leave it to the library. I'll go right now.